Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natav betocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. And for the seventh Aliyah, because it's Shabbat, which no one reminded me, so next year you have to do your homework. It's on page 542. So, all right. And I'd like for the seventh Aliyah to call up Stuart, the senator, and Beth Abrams and Zachary, and they do Rachel, Simchan, Nachem, Zachary, for the seventh Aliyah. And Hildy Garcia will chant.
Need to reconstruction this version. Oh, my wife told me I have to. It never comes out of my mouth, though.
You see how I put your tallit around them both. All right, ready?
So I don't have to read it.
Baruch et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirvanu la'avodato, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Asher Anochi Metzavecha Hayom Li'ahava Et Adonai Elohecha Lalechet Bidrachav Velishmor Umishpatav Vichukotav Umishpatav Vichayita Viravita Uverachecha Adonai Elohecha Ba'aretz Asher Ata Ba'ashama L'rishta V'im yifne levavecha V'lo tishma V'nidakta V'ishtakavita L'Elohim Aherim Ba'avatam Higadati lachem hayom ki avod tovedun lo tarekun yamim al hadama asher ata over et hayarden lavo shama l'rishta ha'idoti vachem hayom et hashamayim v'et haaretz hachayim v'hamavet natati lefanecha habracha v'hakala uvartam v'hayim leman tigeh ata v'zarecha li'ahava et Adonai Elohecha lishmoa bikolo ultav kavo ki hu hayecha v'yoreg yamecha lashevet al hadama asher nishba Adonai lavotecha li'Abraham li'Yitzhak li'Yaakov late lachem. Go ahead.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natav betocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Teacher for you. Okay. Sick one. We'd like to invite Nicole and David Howard and their son Spencer to lift and dress the Torah. Here. Hold this.
All right, I did Herbie's bar mitzvah. Can't be all that long ago, right? He was this tall.
Asher Sam Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yam Moshe.
And you can all be seated, because the Torahs are down, so you get to sit down. Sure, this is the right one. For the maftir, I'd like to call. Okay. Thank you. Okay, for the maftir, I'd like to call up Miriam and Justin Bookie for the honor of reading the Aliyah, and David Kroll will chant that portion, and it is on page 550 in your Machzor. Okay.
Good job.
Okay, David, are you anywhere? Okay, come on around here.
David, are you anywhere?
Okay, so, you see it? Okay, let's go like this. Do you want to, are you left?
Do you do the Reconstructionist version? Pardon me? Do you do the Reconstructionist version? Yeah. Okay. Then you're good. Then you're good.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kervanu la'avotato v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Uve'asor lechodesh hashvi'i hazeh mikra kodesh yeh lachem v'nitem et nafshotechem kol melacha lo ta'asu v'ikravtem ola l'Adonai reach nichoach har ben bakar echad ayil echad kivasim v'nei shana shiv'a timimim iyu lachem uminchatam solet v'lavashamen shlosha esronim lapar shnei esronim la'ayil ha'echad isaron isaron la'keves ha'echad l'shivat ha'kivasim shirisim echad chatat milvad hachatat ha'kipurim ve'olah ha'tamid uminchata v'nizkehem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
And we're going to invite Cindy and Alan Friedland to lift and dress the second Torah. Right?
I blew it by calling all those people for the ark before, right? Like, we would have someone come in the ark now, right? So I could call from the chapel.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Here, can you do it? You know how to do this?
Vezot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe.
And for the Haftorah reading, you can all sit down. such power. Although, I feel like I'm in my classroom. Thank you. So it's my honor to call down Jonathan Zasloff to read the blessings, to chant the blessings, and to chant the Haftorah. The Haftorah is in your book on 572, and I think that the blessings begin on 576.
552.
Okay, is that the opening?
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
I've got.
Okay, that would be it. Good. And use
Hold
the
on.
mic.
Use the mic, okay.
Oh,
Can I have it?
wait.
So we are going to study a little bit about this text this afternoon in our study session, along with other texts related to Yom Kippur. This is the text by Isaiah saying that if we simply go through the form of fasting and being in services, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't fix anything. That we're really supposed to use these spiritual practices as ways to soften us and to bring us to a place of true empathy and compassion for others, so that we can act on that empathy and compassion and make this world a more just and equitable place.
Yeah, this is really a hell of a portion. So I really read the whole thing. I'm only doing part of it. It's in the Israeli Declaration of Independence. They talk about trying to fulfill the social justice promise of the prophets of Israel, and I think this is kind of what they had in mind. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim ורצה בדבריהם הנאמרים באמת. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בתורה ובמשה עבדו ובנביאי האמת והצדק. הלא זה צום אבחרהו פתח חרצובות רשע התר אגודות מותה ושלח רצוצים חופשיים וכל מותה תנתקו. הלא פרוס לרעב לחמך ועניים מרודים תביא בית כי תראה ערום וכיסיתו ומבשרך לא תתעלם. אז יבקע כשחר אורך וארוחתך מהרה תצמח והלך לפניך צדקך כבוד אדוני יאספך. אז תקרא ואדוני יענה תשבע ויאמר הנני אם תסיר מתוכך
Page 574.
מותה שלח אצבע בדבר אבן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם צור כל עולמים צדיק בכל הדורות האל הנאמן האומר ועושה המדבר ומקיים שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ונאמנים דבריך ודבר אחד מדבריך אחור לא ישוב ריקם כי על מלך נאמן ורחמן אתה ברוך אתה אדוני האל הנאמן בכל דבריו. רחם על ציון כי היא בית חיינו ולעלובת נפש תושיע במהרה בימינו. ברוך אתה אדוני מחמח ציון בבניה. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה ועל יום הכיפורים הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו לקדושה ולמנוחה למחילה ולסליחה לכפרה ולמחל בו כל עוונותינו לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו ואנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד ודרכך אמת וקיים לעד. ברוך אתה אדוני המלך מוחל וסולח לעוונותינו ועוונותינו עמו בית ישראל מעביר אשמותינו בכל שנה ושנה מלך על כל הארץ מקדש השבת וישראל ויום הכיפורים.
Amen. Shkoch.
Thank you.
Shkoch. We turn to page 579. And let's read together. Sovereign of the universe, mercifully receive our prayer for our land and its government. Let your blessing pour out on this land and all officials of this country who are occupied in good faith with the public needs. Instruct them from your Torah's laws. Enable them to understand your principles of justice so that peace and tranquility, happiness and freedom might never turn away from our land. Please, wise one, God of the life breath of all flesh, waken your spirit within all inhabitants of our land and plant among the peoples of different nationalities and faiths who dwell here love and brotherhood, peace and friendship. Uproot from their hearts all hatred and enmity, all jealousy and vying for supremacy. Fulfill the yearning of all the people of our country to speak proudly in its honor. Fulfill their desire to see it become a light to all nations. Therefore, may it be your will that our land should be a blessing. Cause friendship and freedom to dwell among all peoples, and soon fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation. Let them learn no longer ways of war. And we say together, Amen. Tzur Yisrael v'go'alom barech nat medinat Yisrael reshit tzmichat geulatenu. Hagen alei b'rov chastecha v'vchos alei sukat shlomecha shlach ocha v'imtcha l'roshea l'shoftea. We ask God's blessing on the land of Israel, that she be sheltered with peace. Send forth your light, God, and truth to those who judge it and to those who hold elective office. Establish in them through your presence wise counsel, that they might walk in the way of justice, freedom, and integrity. Strengthen the hands of those who guard our holy land, and let them inherit salvation and life. Give peace to the land and perpetual joy to its inhabitants. Appoint for a blessing all our kindred, those of the house of Israel, in all the lands of their dispersion. Plant in their hearts a love of Zion, and for all our people everywhere, may God be with them, and may they have the opportunity to go up to the land. Cause your Spirit's influence to emanate among all dwellers of our holy land. Remove from their midst hatred and enmity, jealousy and wickedness, and plant in their hearts love and kinship, peace and friendship, that once again the words of the prophet may be fulfilled. And we say together, Amen. I'd like to ask those in the chapel who will accept the honor to come forward to open the ark and be in our sanctuary as we return the Sefer Torah to the ark. We'll turn to page 598. They elected you, apparently. You can open the ark. We rise as the ark is open on page 598.
Yahallelu et Shem Adonai, Ki niskav Shemo Livado,
Hodo al eretz v'shamayim vayarem kerem le'amo tehillah lechol chasid המחזיקים בה ותומכך מאושר דרכך דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיך שלום השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש חדש ימינו חדש ימינו כקדם.
The Torah readings for Rosh Hashanah and first day, second day, the compelling stories that bring us into this new year are about Avraham Avinu, Abraham, our mythic ancestor. Today we read from Nitzavim, we read from Deuteronomy. And for me, this past year, really the figure that stands out for me from Torah, the story, the most compelling story for me, has been that of Moshe, that of Moses. Moshe is a powerful figure in our tradition. He is the paradigmatic Jewish leader. The rabbis had given him the greatest label they could, the greatest name they could. They called him Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe, our rabbi, our Rav. Because for us, true leadership, real leadership in the Jewish people is all about teaching. Teaching by example, teaching by digging for what we believe to be revelatory, what we believe to be about the path forward to be a holy people, the path of godliness, the path of awareness, the path of compassion. We are honoring Stephen Carr Rubin this year for his service to our community, and that is one of the reasons Moshe has been such a compelling figure for me. Because as we go into this last year of celebrating the service of Rabbi Rubin, I can't help, of course, but think about the ways that he is and has been and will remain the paradigmatic Jewish leader. What Rabbi Carr Rubin has brought to this community lines up in wonderful ways with the story of Moses, with the story of Moshe. Moshe's life begins, of course, with him in danger. Moshe is an infant who's supposed to be drowned. His mother looks at him and understands how amazing it is that a human being exists at all, this infant, and she can't do it. So she hides him for as long as she can, then puts him in a basket, as we all know the story goes. And then we know that Miriam watches over him, and the daughter of Pharaoh comes. And the text tells us that she sends, when she spies the basket, the daughter of Pharaoh sends her maidservant out to get that basket. Well, if you were here for the women's Passover celebration, you know that that's not the end of that story. The rabbis purposefully misread that text. And they said, don't read amata, she sent out her maidservant. Rather, put a dagesh in the hay, so it's a double hay. And then it means she sent out, one way to read it is, she sent out her arm. Amata shelah, her arm. And the rabbis say, well, if she had to send her maidservant to get it, clearly it was far enough away that she couldn't bring it in herself. So how can she put out her arm and hope to get that basket? And the rabbis say because the daughter of Pharaoh had no idea how it was going to happen, all she knew is that she felt compelled to reach out and to bring that baby in. And in that moment of reaching for what she knew was probably not possible, she opens up the opportunity for a miracle. And God performs a miracle and extends her arm so far that it reaches the basket and saves the life of the baby Moses. She raises this enemy child as her own, someone she's supposed to think is valueless enough to kill, to drown with the rest of the Hebrew babies. Maurice Harris, in his book on Moses, says this part of the story of Moses teaches us that the seeding of a new era of history can happen in the brief moment it takes for a single person to have a change of heart. In that moment, when compassion stirs one person to the point of some small act of resistance to a system of evil, we witness an aspect of reality that no CEO, president, dictator, or supreme leader can eliminate from the human experience: compassion's version of the butterfly effect. Rabbi Stephen Carr Rubin embodies compassion's version of the butterfly effect. He is someone who is so able to reach across lines, to reach across a state of otherness or difference, and in reaching, create the incredible possibilities that didn't exist a moment before of people coming in, of people joining our family, of people believing that they belong. He has that amazing ability to reach past argument. He has the amazing capacity to welcome people. That is why KI is 1,000 families strong. He and Cantor Frankel, the staff, the lay leadership of this congregation are committed above all to having this be a place where we reach out to bring others in, where we reach further than we even think sometimes we can to bring people into a place of safety. Rabbi Carr Rubin has sat in his office with so many who are in pain, who have been cast off, who are outside, who are other. And I cannot tell you how many times I've seen people transformed from the time they came in until the time they left his office. The difference is incredible to watch. We can't predict what a turning of the heart, what an act of compassion can do. But what we know is that it can create a crack at the center even of an empire of evil that allows light in. And as that crack widens, bad things crumble. All we can do is hope to create a crack for one another. And so as we live into this year of transition, of having Rabbi Rubin transition into Rabbi Emeritus, I'm going to ask that we commit ourselves to living into the values that he has taught us, our Rav, our teacher, and that we truly reach for one another. We've gotten big. Let's make sure we introduce ourselves to one another. You're going to have me as senior rabbi and a new rabbi who doesn't know anybody coming in here. Cantor Frankel's the only one who knows everybody. So we're going to rely on him, but we're going to need your help. So introduce yourselves to each other. Make sure we know your names, because we want so much to belong to one another. We want so much for this to be a place where people can walk in and immediately feel like they belong. Moshe is raised as a prince of Egypt, and therefore he is part of the privileged group, part of the ones who are given full permission to brutalize and oppress the Hebrews. And so Moshe is walking one day as a prince of Egypt, and he sees, we all know the story, the taskmaster beating the Hebrew slave. Moshe could have walked away because it was absolutely legal. What was happening, it was absolutely condoned. But Moshe couldn't do that because Moshe understood from that place that is not about thinking. He understood from that deep place of compassion and empathy that he had to act. And so he kills the taskmaster. And that might have stayed a secret, and he might have gotten away with it, and he might have remained a prince of Egypt, except when he sees the Hebrew slave the next day, the Hebrew slave says, "Oh, why are you coming to me? You going to kill me too, the way you did that Egyptian?" So Moshe now knows that the word is out, and it's not exactly a friendly word on the street, and that he's now a fugitive. As our president Abraham Lincoln said, "I don't know why that man hates me. I never helped him." Rabbi Stephen Carr Rubin is somebody who acts. It bypasses his brain sometimes. He acts out of compassion and out of empathy and out of justice and out of what he feels called passionately to speak for. And just like Moshe going to that Hebrew, often he doesn't get words of thanks. Instead, he gets words of criticism. He doesn't care somehow. He moves forward anyway. I've asked him, how do you do it? How do you read that email and get up and speak in the pulpit again? And he said, look, people need to say what they need to say. Okay. So let them say what they need to say. Why does it bother me? And he has this amazing capacity to just stand for what he knows is right and let come what comes. How many of us have that courage? How many of us have that kind of strength of character to always stand for the marginalized and the oppressed and the brutalized and the disappeared? How many of us are willing to take criticism for what we really believe should change, what we really believe is right? We as privileged Americans living in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, are we using our positions like he is? Are we using our positions of power like he is to speak and to motivate action for those who have no one but us to speak on their behalf? Moshe again defends vulnerable women at the well, and in this acquires a wife. Sometimes acts of justice will get you good things. And he joins the family of her father, of Zipporah's father, who's the high priest of Midian, Yitro, and becomes a shepherd for Yitro. And it is that job, it is that role, it is being part of that family that puts Moshe on the path to the sneh, to the bush that's on fire. And if you had a flock of sheep that are, by the way, flammable, and you were in the desert where it's very dry, and something's on fire, and the sheep belong to your father-in-law, what do? Run. You go the other way and get those sheep moving as quickly as possible in the other direction. What does Moshe do? Moshe stops and looks at the bush. And he looks long enough to notice that something is odd, that the fire's going, but the bush is not ukal, is not being eaten up, it's not being consumed. It takes a while to notice that. You got to look at a fire for a while to notice that the fuel's not being burned up. So then does Moshe leave? Okay, there's this odd thing going on, and then he's going to take his sheep? No. The Torah tells us he turns aside to go look at the site, to look more deeply into it. What is wrong with this guy? What's wrong with him is what's the same thing that's wrong with Rabbi Stephen Carr Rubin. He's so curious that sometimes he disregards his own safety in order to just find out what's going on. He's so curious. He wants to know. He always wants to know. If you talk to Rabbi Rubin and you tell him what you do for a living, guaranteed you get 5 follow-up questions. Really? I never heard of that. What do you do when you do that? How exactly do you get into a career like that? He's so curious. And according to Rabbi Sachs, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, the former chief rabbi of England, he says leaders, Jewish leaders learn. They study more than others do. They read more than others do. The Torah says that a king must write his own Sefer Torah. Study makes the difference between the statesman and the politician, between the transformative leader and the manager. When we remain open, when we remain curious, when we read a lot. What are we reading? What are you reading? I can't get through an article these days. I don't know about you, much less a book. Rabbi Rubin reads this much in an afternoon. It's crazy. He's just always looking, always open for information. He's always asking, so what are we reading? Are we staying open? Are we staying curious? Are we cultivating curiosity? We might think, okay, that's a lovely thing to be curious and it's a lovely thing to read a lot, but what does it really translate into? It could translate into world peace. Because what do we tend to do when somebody has an opinion different from ours? We tend to lock in, don't we? And then we get resistant. And then we got to push our point. But that's not what Rabbi Reuben does. Rabbi Reuben says, really? How did you get to that position from all the facts that I understand? How did you come to that conclusion from everything that I understand is going on in this situation? And in doing that, he's able to maintain relationship and to be able to talk to people across those divides. How are we doing with that in our lives? How are we doing with our partners, with our coworkers, with the newscaster on TV with whom we vociferously disagree? Do we listen anymore to an opinion that's different from ours? How are we doing at KI? About listening to each other across our differences. If we can stay curious the way Rabbi Carl Rubin does, we have a chance at hearing each other and at least understanding each other, even if we don't agree. That is how you build a community that's this big and this diverse, and yet all one congregation. Moshe could have easily stayed on the mountain where he could have hung out with the Holy One, and that would have been a lot easier than leading the Jewish people. But the Torah tells us that Moshe doesn't stay on the mountain or preach to the people from the mountain. He understood that to communicate the lessons of Torah effectively, he needed to put it in language people could understand. And the Torah says Moshe went down vaydaber itam and spoke with them. He's able, he has the gift of coming down from this lofty, amazing place of understanding things that the people didn't get yet and be able to put it in terms that they could access, that they could understand. Rabbi Reuben is a master at doing that. You've seen him do it here with stories, with jokes, with his books, with his articles. His Torah commentary will continue to come to you, I promise. It is my goal to rope him into speaking every High Holy Days, at least once to each group here at the sanctuary and at Wadsworth. Why shouldn't we hear from Rabbi Reuben as our emeritus every year? Don't you agree? Yeah. All right, good. You will help me keep the pressure on. How are we doing at communicating the things that we really understand need to be communicated to me, I think especially to our children? Are we standing up here and telling them what needs to happen? Moshe was the paradigmatic example of how to get on your knees and be at their level. How are we doing communicating things even that we're excited about or really feel clearly need to happen? How are we doing it making sure we're putting it in ways that other people can understand and other people can access? Moshe is depicted often in culture and art as a loner. But he's not a loner. He's pictured as holding the commandments by himself or being pensive or being on the mountain with rays of light coming from him all alone. But if you read the story closely, Moshe listened to the people around him, to his father-in-law who said, you need to get a better system. You can't do all this by yourself. You can't lead these people by yourself. You need committees. You need a board of directors, and you need committees, and you need chairs of those committees. And the committees need committees. And Moshe understood the wisdom of that and formed committees. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs says that Judaism prefers the leadership of influence to the leadership of power. Kings had power. Prophets had influence, but no power at all. Power lifts the leader above the people. Influence lifts the people above their former selves. Influence respects people. Power controls people. Power begets followers. Teaching creates leaders. Rabbi Reuben has created a culture here of leadership. He really believes that this is your congregation and should be led by your most able and talented people. That is who should be the one leading the decision-making process, a values-based decisions-making process. How are we doing? How are y'all doing in terms of leadership? Are you ready to step into leadership, to take on some newer commitment to KI, to serve this community? You don't have to head a committee. You can be on a committee. You can ask a committee one thing that you can help with. But we're going to need you. We need the next generation of leaders to step forward. That doesn't mean you have to be younger. We need the next generation of leaders to step forward. If you just retired, mazel tov. Come talk to our board of directors about how it is you can be more involved at KI and take on more leadership here. Moshe also teamed with his brother Aaron. The Midrash says that Moshe got an injury. It's a very interesting story we'll tell someday. Moshe got an injury that made him unable to speak, because the Torah tells us that he complains that his mouth is different. And that injury, says the Midrash, left Moshe unable to address the people. So whenever Moshe knows what he wants to say, it's Aaron who addresses the people. Aaron is the voice, the beautiful voice of Moshe speaking to the people as high priest. It was a true partnership between Moshe and Aharon. And we have seen that partnership with Rabbi Reuben and Cantor Frankel. And the feedback at Wadsworth was that we were all talking about Rabbi Reuben, and so we got some feedback that said, but nobody talked about Chaim in terms of what Chaim thinks about all this. Cantor Frankel then responded by email, of course, right away within 30 seconds, even on Rosh Hashanah, that he really wanted to communicate clearly how much he's excited and how confident he is about this rabbinic transition going forward. He has been really the partner. He will be the partner in this relationship as well. He's the one with longevity. He's the one with the relationships with all of you. He's all of your best friend, I know. And we count on him. He is the anchor for this congregation. Trust that everyone knows that, from lay leaders to your clergy, and I couldn't be more pleased and proud to be partnering with Cantor Frankel going forward. A mature leader, says Rabbi Sachs, plans for succession, plans for the time when he will no longer be the leader. Rabbi Sachs says, for each of us, there is a Jordan we will not cross, however long we live, however far we travel,